A federal judge has blocked President Trump's executive order on mail voting, leaving ballot rules for millions of Americans unsettled ahead of future elections. This is Omni View, episode 158. The ruling prevents the order from taking effect while legal challenges continue. The decision follows previous court actions on the same matter. The Associated Press reports the order as an attempt to tighten voting procedures. Democratic-led lawsuits argue it exceeds presidential authority over state-run elections. The White House has defended the measure as necessary for election integrity. Opponents view it as an overreach that could restrict access for voters who rely on mail ballots. These positions reflect differing priorities on federal versus state control of elections and on balancing security with participation. One argument holds that uniform federal standards can reduce opportunities for fraud across states that administer elections differently. That view draws support from concerns raised in prior election cycles about verification processes. The counterargument holds that the Constitution assigns primary responsibility for election administration to the states. Presidential directives cannot override those arrangements without congressional action. Legal proceedings will determine how far the order can reach before any ballots are cast. Shifting now to Norway. King Harald V of Norway, Europe's oldest monarch, has died at age 89 after 35 years on the throne. The BBC and AP both reported the death on the same day. Succession will pass to Crown Prince Haakon under Norway's constitutional monarchy. Norwegian state media have focused on the king's long public role and steady presence during national events. International outlets such as the BBC have noted his symbolic importance in a country that maintains a constitutional monarchy with limited political power. The death occurs at a time when European monarchies continue to serve largely ceremonial functions. Norway's parliament is expected to confirm the succession process in the coming days. Next, Canadian trade talks. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has indicated he sees scope to negotiate with President Trump over proposed new tariffs. The Economist notes that the outcome will depend on whether that assessment proves accurate. Canadian officials have emphasized the importance of maintaining open trade flows with the United States, Canada's largest export market. The Trump administration has framed tariffs as tools to protect domestic industries and address trade imbalances. Observers in both countries are watching whether talks produce exemptions or revised terms. Turning to business developments in Africa, large domestic conglomerates are expanding in several African countries in a pattern seen historically in the United States, South Korea, and India. The Economist reports that this development could support broader industrial expansion on the continent. Business analysts have pointed to the role these firms play in building supply chains and attracting investment. Some governments view the conglomerates as partners in national development plans. Others monitor their market influence to avoid excessive concentration. The pattern draws on earlier episodes of rapid industrialization elsewhere. Markets moved higher in technology shares. Technology stocks posted gains during trading, with attention turning to upcoming comments from the Federal Reserve Chair. Reuters highlighted the sector's performance in its daily market summary. Investors have responded to recent earnings reports from major technology companies. Central bank policy signals remain a key factor for market participants assessing interest rate paths. The Chinese online retailer Shein has seen its valuation decline even as it continues to explore stock market listings in various locations. The Economist reports that the company's business conditions have worsened during this period. Company representatives have maintained that a public listing remains a goal despite the valuation shift. Market observers note that investor sentiment toward fast fashion and Chinese firms has fluctuated in recent months. Now, some progress worth knowing about. Rescue operations near the Nepal border were stopped after a dammed lake began overflowing. Reuters reported the decision followed rising water levels that created fresh hazards for teams on the ground. District officials stated the lake had broken its banks, with water levels continuing to rise. Reuters coverage described the immediate safety risks that forced the pause in search and recovery work. The development adds to ongoing challenges in the region after earlier flooding events. Authorities will monitor water levels before deciding whether to resume operations. Now, to really understand this story, there's something most coverage leaves out. Most coverage of executive orders on elections treats them as direct commands that take effect immediately. Yet the actual process involves multiple layers of judicial review before any change reaches voters. When a president issues such an order, affected states or advocacy groups can file suit in federal district court. Judges there assess whether the directive exceeds statutory or constitutional bounds. The case can then move through appeals courts and potentially reach the Supreme Court. This structure stems from the Constitution's separation of powers and the Administrative Procedure Act's requirements for agency-like actions. Historical examples show that courts have blocked or narrowed voting-related orders in the past when they determined the president lacked authority over state election administration. Knowing this, when you hear claims that an order will immediately reshape voting nationwide, you can check whether litigation has already paused implementation. One concrete step is to look up the specific district court docket number mentioned in reporting and read the judge's order directly, rather than relying on summaries. Another useful check is to compare the exact language of the executive order against the statutory authority cited in the text. Courts often focus on whether that authority actually grants the president power over state election procedures. Readers can also track the timeline of similar past cases, such as those involving changes to voter identification or ballot deadlines, to see how long judicial review typically takes before a final ruling emerges. Finally, noting which states have joined lawsuits provides insight into how different administrations of elections across the country interpret the same federal directive. If you want to go deeper on today's lead, compare how AP News and The Economist are covering it. Tomorrow, watch for whether Norway's parliament confirms the succession process in the coming days. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best informed people read more than one perspective, and the calmest ones know that most days, somewhere, something is quietly getting better. For full source links, check out today's written briefing on the Omni View Summaries page. Share this with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nara Network. Links in the show notes. One more thing. If you liked today's episode, our sister show, First Principles Daily, is worth a spot in your feed. Reasoning from raw materials, not analogy, on the breakthroughs that actually cut cost. It's one of the Nara Network's daily briefings, all free at naranetwork.com. The Do Positive Pod is the club for people who do something about it. Episodes and the dispatch wall at naranetwork.com, the DP Pod. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.